may not be suitable for all audiences.
Well, you coming?
Where?
Art 101 with Mr. Burgher.
Scholars, welcome back to another episode of Art 101 with me, Mr. Burgher. I'm a professional artist and master educator. Despite my appearance, I'm here trying to give you the best in art historical content. If you like the content, do the right thing for the holiday season. Make sure you like, share, subscribe, because remember, Santa is watching.
Shit, what you want?
For the holiday seasons, typically I like to do videos on all kinds of different topics and subjects, and this year, I'd like to go into a family member of sorts. This year, I want to talk a little bit about Grandma Moses. When it comes to our art family, there really is no one like Mary Ann Robertson Moses, better known to us as Grandma Moses, who is an American folk artist who began painting at the age of 78. She lived most of her life doing all kinds of things from housekeeping and farm-type labor, I guess, until she got married in 1887, and she and her husband Thomas were Virginia farmers who worked the land and that sort of thing, moving and settling in Eagle Bridge, New York in 1905. And over the course of their years, they had 10 children, 5 surviving beyond infancy. And throughout all of those years, throughout all that time, she was always kind of crafty, liked to do little hobby things, but nothing too serious, as there was a lot of stuff to do on the farm. Her husband had passed away in 1927, and she and one of her sons continued to operate their farm until she decided to retire from farming in 1936. And again, all the while, she's doing all kinds of hobby types of things, very much interested in knitting and crocheting and yarn type work, until the arthritis really started to set in and she had to find something else to do to occupy her time. So her sister suggests, hey, you know what, instead of doing the embroidery and all that, why don't you just take up painting? And that really is what sparked this work in Grandma Moses. She kind of jokingly once had said something like, at the age of 78, I decided I was either going to raise chickens or become a painter, so I decided, what the heck, I'll just become a painter. But I think that's more her sense of humor than it is anything actually authentic. But at any rate, she would sell some of her paintings here and there for $3 to $5 a piece at local stores and the pharmacy and things like that. And she always had sold her works under the name Mrs. Moses.
Who goes there?
Us, of course. Who'd you think?
Oh, well, then that's okay.
Grandma Moses really captured rural life in her so-called old-timey New England landscapes.
I've been trying to paint old scenes. I suppose because I'm old.
Again, she was charging $3 to $5 for these works and eventually would work her way up as she got more and more success to earning $8,000 to $10,000 per work. And the highest amount that was ever spent on one of her paintings was $1.36 million for a single painting. But at any rate, in 1938, there's this art collector kind of guy walking through town, and he saw some of her paintings in a drugstore window. And he goes in and he buys all of them up. He gets information on where she lived, goes to her house and buys another 10 of these works. And he's pretty prominent. He puts her name out there. He really loves the art style. Now, some people call her a folk artist. Some say she is naive art or whatever. So you call it what you want. Grandma Moses is just kind of Grandma Moses. And he takes these artworks and begins to show them around, talks her up, and the next year, her work was included in an exhibition at the Museum of Modern Art that was put together to promote the unknown American painter. Then in 1940, she got her first solo show, and soon she went international. Her works were reproduced on Hallmark greeting cards and all kinds of different products, gaining more and more popularity, and into the 1950s was hugely popular. She was awarded 2 honorary doctorates of art, featured on Time magazine cover in 1953, was included in numerous television programs, and even nominated for an Oscar for a documentary on her life. Her autobiography was a bestseller. You can pick that up. It's called My Life's History, and that was published back in 1952. And one of the most interesting ones, in my opinion, was in 1948. Mademoiselle magazine named her Young Woman of the Year at the young age of 88.
Son of a nutcracker!
When she was selling at the local pharmacy and whatnot, she was under the name Mrs. Moses, but articles and things like that were being written about her as she was becoming more and more known and recognized. And there was a newspaper in New York called the Herald Tribune, and a writer in there started calling her Grandma Moses because some of the people around town where she lived were calling her Grandma Moses, and so they put that in there, and that just kind of stuck as her name, and she just used that as her name as she was beginning to go into bigger shows and all those sorts of things. And it is in fact true that she was in fact a grandmother. She had 9 grandchildren and 30 plus great-grandchildren. So who knows what her family tree looks like these days. Side note, she did not live very far, just over the border from Norman Rockwell. She was in New York and he was in Vermont, and they became very good painter friends, and she was even included in his painting of Christmas Homecoming. You can see her there on the edge, painted for the Saturday Evening Post, and their cover from December the 25th, 1948. And you can also see right there in the composition, Norman Rockwell's self-portrait.
Oh, it's nice to have everyone here. You can feel the peace of the holiday season.
Grandma Moses continued to paint and work all the way to the end of her life, painting just a few months before her death at 101.
What sort of advice would you give to those people if they had time to try their hand at painting?
Well, anybody can paint that wants to paint.
Can they?
Oh, sure. Sure, anybody can paint.
And what I really love about Grandma Moses is that she didn't really even start doing this until her late 70s. And over the course of that time, she produced thousands of paintings that give all kinds of people joy, and she had her own unique, untrained sort of quality about her work where she would pick things up from other artists, but really very little to no formal training, but she was still picking things up. She was still figuring out how to create things, noting that she would paint from the top of the canvas to the bottom, which is very basic but fundamental in how a landscape is painted. And all kinds of little things like that that she didn't learn formally, but picked up along the way because it was important for her to get better at what she was doing, and it was important for her to make the best product that she could make that people would enjoy.
Don't piss me off, Art.
So if you're sitting around this holiday season with nothing to do, you don't think you're young enough to do something, remember, Grandma Moses started at 78. You can pick up that brush, you can pick up that pencil, you can go to work just as easily as anyone else. I hope you enjoy that video as much as I enjoy being able to bring it to you. Happy holidays, and we'll see you next time.
Happy holiday and a Merry Christmas to you.
God bless you, sir.
Thank you, sir. Glad tidings.